the coach, but he actually had done some good things with the Georgia program. For whatever reason, Tom Crean just was a bad fit at Georgia. And even though a couple of years ago he had like one of the best players in the country as a freshman, still couldn't make anything happen there in Athens with that basketball program. And so, I mean, it appears to be a pretty cut and dry situation there in Georgia. There have been reports that a change is coming to the Georgia basketball program, and they have to give him, according to the contract, and maybe it's Georgia law, I'm not sure, one or the other, they have to give him 7 days' notice that they're going to fire him before they actually fire him, or not just him, but I guess a state employee. And so I don't know if that's happened yet. As of yesterday, it happened, had not happened, but it's going to happen. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, it's going to happen at Georgia. And again, you look at the record, not just this year, which was like awful, but the entire 4 years, just terrible. And it does not have any hope of getting any better, or so it would appear at Georgia. So that one's pretty much cut and dry. But South Carolina and Clemson, it's just not a clear-cut situation for either one. Neither one has been awful. At times, Clemson went to the NCAA tournament last year. Do we even have this conversation about Brad Brownell? Should we even have this conversation about Brad Brownell? Because they're just a year removed from the NCAA tournament. This year's team had to deal with some injuries that set them back, no doubt about it. Tyson was out part of the year. Hall's been dealing with the foot injury, cost him some games, and he wasn't 100%, not able to practice. They were close in a lot of their losses. They were close losses. Blame that on coaching if you want. Probably can do that. There's some you got to put some of it on the players as well. But again, I harken back to the fact that they were an NCAA tournament team last year. They've been to the NCAA tournament multiple times under Brownell, and they rallied this year, and that says something about the players and the coach that they rallied this year to a strong finish. They're probably not going to go anywhere. I can't see them going to the NIT. Yet they did not just quit and say the heck with it and lose 10, 12 in a row to close out the season. They put together a nice winning streak, won an ACC tournament game, and then and of course they had a chance to win a second ACC tournament game. But like so many games at Clemson this season, they lost. South Carolina, again, the difference is they haven't had much of a postseason tournament history under Frank Martin. Now, Frank Martin will give you a bit of a different story and break it down differently and kind of point out that really he should only be held accountable of his 10 full seasons at South Carolina. He should be held accountable maybe for 4 of them because there's a reason for the other 6. Well, of course, in one of them, they went to the NCAA tournament and they went to the Final Four. In a second season, they did not have an NCAA tournament, so you can't hold that against them. In a third season, they were dealing severely with COVID, so you shouldn't hold that against them. The first 2 years when they were trying to jumpstart the program and do it the right way, in his words, and not cheat and bring in quality players, you can't really hold that against them. So really, 4 bad seasons out of the 10 is how he would probably break it down to you. So 60% of the time, in his mind, it's been acceptable or explainable. So what do you do about South Carolina? Because it's possible they're not going to go to the NIT after that loss last night. There's obviously they're not going to the NCAA tournament again. There was great improvement from last year. They won 3 times as many games this year than they won last year, 6-18. Though one of those 18 wins was against a D2 team. But on the record book, it says 18. They won 6 the previous year. So marked improvement there. Off the court, Frank Martin is very involved in the community, very involved in leadership role in college basketball, a spokesman for things in college basketball, highly regarded by other coaches across the country, speaks out his mind about issues regarding the game, good and bad. and graduates his players, doesn't cheat, but he's not getting to the NCAA tournament. And I guess, ultimately in college basketball, isn't that what it boils down to in everybody's mind? Do you get to the NCAA tournament or do you not? I mean, that's the world they've created for college basketball. College basketball coaches should not complain about that being the standard because that's the world they've all created. Getting to the NCAA tournament is the end all for college basketball. And, however you want to slice it, in 10 full seasons with 9 tournament opportunities, the Gamecocks have been to 1. So, what do you do if you're Ray Tanner? Ray Tanner actually got a chance to talk to him a little bit last night and see him. He was there at the tournament, which I don't know if that's surprising or not. I guess you come in and you support your team and you support your coach. And maybe he was there watching for other reasons. Who knows? But he seemed like he didn't seem like a athletics director who had a heavy decision weighing on him. He seemed like he was in a positive frame of mind, a good mood, and didn't seem like he had, that thing on his shoulders. So I think, I don't know. I think it's a tough call. I think the Clemson call, Pat, as I think about it, is an easier situation because Brownell has been to the tournament multiple times. He's in the ACC, even though the SEC is the better league this year. And his team did not quit on him this year. They were close in a lot of those losses. Got a good team coming back, and most of those guys come back along with what I think is a good-looking recruiting class. That one seems to be the easier call. Frank Martin, I mean, you look at the improvement from last year to this year. You look at the possibility of landing G.G. Jackson. If you keep him, you got a good chance at landing G.G. Jackson, who could be that one player that elevates you to national prominence again. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Clemson first. I've been a big Brad Brownell supporter for, going back years and years, but I have 2 lines of thought on it. First, I feel as though that class of 2020 that he had, his recruiting class, we never really got to see what all of us pundits thought was going to be his overwhelmingly best recruiting class in his time at Clemson. And that may finally be the guys that helped propel Clemson back into relevancy again within the ACC. And remember, that was PJ Hall, Olivier Maxence Prosper, and Lynn Kidd. All 3, and I know I'm not trying to get too far into the whole star rating thing, but just to emphasize the strength that we thought this recruiting class was going to have, you had PJ Hall. All 3 were 4-star recruits coming out of high school. All 3 were top 150 recruits in the country out of high school. Well, Olivier Maxence Prosper is now at Marquette. Lynn Kidd is now at Virginia Tech. Neither one have done exactly really a whole lot at either one of those locations. So maybe they were a little bit overhyped. I don't know, and I don't mean any offense towards those young men. It's just maybe we never got to see what those 3 together could have been at Clemson. And then also, remember the class of 2021, the top signee was Ben Middlebrooks, but he was originally supposed to be class of 2022. He reclassified, should only be a senior in high school right now. And this year we saw him, you saw some flashes, but he seemed a bit, to put it mildly, over his head a bit, almost as though he needed an extra year of high school or an extra year to get himself ready. Now, next year, we might be able to see a better combination with between him and PJ Hall. So personally, I think that Brad Brownell should get at least one more year just to see what he's able to do with these players that he has. And to your point, they did not give up on him. But I also have a little voice in the back of my head saying, he's been there long enough. At what point is it better just for all parties involved to have a fresh start? Maybe you just need a new voice in the locker room, a new voice representing the university itself. Not to say that he's done anything bad to represent the university, but just I was lucky enough to be a student at Clemson during the Oliver Purnell days. And I will never forget when coming into the preseason one year, ESPN had Clemson, little tiny Little John Coliseum was ranked the number 6 toughest place to play in the country. I had to find multiple sources just to believe it with my own eyes, but those games were electric. I have not been to a game, but maybe 1 or 2 throughout the Brad Brownell era where there was ever the level of excitement within that arena, within the fan base, that we had in the Purnell days, in the Rick Barnes days. It, I don't know if that's necessarily a reason to get rid of the guy, but it's just at a certain point, it might be better for all parties involved to find a new voice and see if you can kind of add a little bit of jolt of excitement into a program. And so that's where I'm personally a little bit torn. I'm not sure your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sometimes a new voice is a smart thing to do, and it's good both ways. Sometimes, look, the shelf life of a coach is not ordinarily 10, 11 years at a place. It's like 6, 7 years, and then they grow tired of one another. The days of the Dean Smith run, the Mike Krzyzewski run, Roy Williams run, things like that. That's rare these days. Looks like Dabo Swinney's in for a very long, extended run as Clemson's head football coach. There doesn't seem to be any loss of comfort there either way. But I hear what you're saying. Sometimes a new voice is a good direction to move in. As we welcome Matt Smith, we're calling Smitty in out of the bullpen. I should have said from the get-go that Chris Bergen, a little bit under the weather. If you heard him last night with Smitty and Pat, he was dealing with a head cold that was coming on. And I can understand why, because he was in Florida with Coastal Carolina for about a week. I was in Florida for 2 days, and it's gone from it was 86 degrees when I was getting out of Tampa today, and or heading towards 86. It was 86 yesterday. It was probably in the low 80s this morning as I was heading out. It's 55 degrees here now. So I can certainly understand, Smitty, how you'd pick up a head cold. Hopefully, I've got enough vaccine in me to fight off anything. But what do you think about what we're talking about? Do you see anything clear cut either way, or do you kind of see a dilemma for the athletic directors at both places?
I think it is a dilemma, Corn, because I think in both circumstances, you could have attorneys on both sides in a courtroom making a pretty good case for either one of these coaches. Really, the best case against Brad Brownell is what you two just discussed. Has it become stagnant? Has it simply just run its course with Brad Brownell, what he does at Clemson, and there is just no reason to believe that he's going to be able to recruit at an elite level or take the program to the next step up that we saw. That's the thing. Brad Brownell's winning percentage, some of the things he's accomplished, I think there's a lot to be proud of, but he has yet to take the program to the heights that Cliff Ellis did or the heights that Rick Barnes did or even Oliver Purnell. Oliver Purnell, yes, it faded, but there were times where that was a highly thought of team. So I think that's the case against Brownell, although I really like them and I think he's a good coach. And I think picking up PJ Hall was terrific. And I think next year Hall's going to be a force in the ACC. And with Frank Martin, you just have to decide as a Gamecock administration, and this goes even higher than Ray Tanner, what are the expectations for South Carolina basketball? Who are you supposed to be? Because so often Frank Martin, he kind of defends himself and defends his record in the press conferences, and he says, hey, we won 18 games, or we had a 500 record or better than 500 record in the SEC. And all my players got better over the course of their careers, and I've been a good influence on them. If that is the standard at South Carolina, then that's fine. To me, I think you could probably, if that's the standard at South Carolina, you could probably get away with doing that, and you wouldn't have to pay somebody as much as you're paying Frank Martin, who is one of the higher paid coaches in college basketball. But if the standard is you're supposed to challenge at the top of the SEC on occasion every 4 or 5 years, and you're supposed to get into the NCAA tournament, let's say half the time, 5 times out of 10 seasons, then Frank Martin has not accomplished that. That hasn't been good enough. And then you also have to ask, if he's not the head coach at South Carolina, can you do better? Can you do better? He is a face. He is well respected in the industry, but you just have to make that decision. Corn, I know you're old enough to remember Frank McGuire, but also South Carolina hasn't really been that kind of program since they left the ACC. So it's not fair to compare that era to. So I think you just have to decide, and Ray Tanner needs to answer that question. He might have to look in the mirror or go speak to the board members and say, how good are we supposed to be in basketball? Are we supposed to be a 500 team in the SEC? Because if that's what you're supposed to be, then you've got your man in Frank Martin. If you're supposed to be better than that, then you might have to have a hard conversation with him.
why shouldn't South Carolina and Clemson aspire to and actually be really good in basketball? I mean, really good. Why can't they be, why can't they be like Michigan? I know they didn't have a great year this year, but traditionally Michigan is good. I'm thinking about schools that, of course, emphasize football, but also excel in basketball year in and year out. Why can't South Carolina and Clemson be there? Florida was like that under Donovan, of course, even before Donovan. And Mike White's a good coach, and they're not up to their standards right now, but and neither are they in their football. But look at that. Look at Florida. Look at Tennessee from time to time. Their basketball program right now is sky high. Their football program's been there. That's another place. Auburn right now is enjoying it. How long that will continue? They seem to think they're going to be good in basketball for a long time. He just signed their coach to a long-term contract. So they can be, they should be. They've got the financial backing. They've got the facilities. They will have the fan support if they win enough games. The fans will come out and fill both gyms. Well, maybe not the CLA. That's a hard place to fill on a regular basis. But at least I think if South Carolina every year was really good in basketball, I think you'd see the men sell out that building at least 3 or 4 times. I mean, true sellouts. I think you'd see it 3 or 4 times a year. Certainly when Kentucky comes to town, and then when any of the other top contenders in the SEC, and maybe Clemson in the years they're hosting Clemson, I think you'd see that building at 18,000. It can be done. It should be done. There's too much emphasis, too much money being spent. There's plenty of talent. Yes, neither school has done extremely well recruiting the top talent in the state of South Carolina, but they are able to go out and find some good players outside the state. Why it hasn't here's the hard part about South Carolina again, Smitty, when you say why did it not go well for South Carolina? Well, they did go from 6 wins to 18 wins. They did win 9 games in the toughest league in the country this year. They did finish 5th, tied for 5th. The problem is, on too many occasions, they had games like last night where of course, I want to say this about last night. It's not like they stunk for 40 minutes. They only really stunk for 10 minutes. Does that soften the blow? It doesn't, and it shouldn't. But to be real, with 10:29 to go, they were down 5 when they made their last, their next to last shot of the game. Is that right? 10:29. I think they made one shot after the 10:29 marks. They were down 5 when they made that basket, and then things just died on the vine for them offensively, and they couldn't stop Mississippi State's guys inside. Mississippi State's too strong, too talented, too lean with their big guys, too athletic for what South Carolina can do. So they played 30 minutes of very competitive basketball last night, and then it got away from them. But what people remember, of course, the final 10 minutes and the final spread being what it was. So that kind of takes away from everything that you kind of accomplished this year, and puts people in a sour mood about your program, and that's what they've got to avoid in the future if they can. All right, we are coming up on the bottom of the hour break. Pat tells me we've got everything operational now, so that's good to know. So we'll hit the bottom of the hour break. We'll catch up on the scores, the basketball scores, the baseball scores. We'll hear from Frank Martin, what he had to say after last night's loss. And also coming up, 7:05, we should have our regular crew with us tonight. We should have Brian Ralph with us talking about these tournaments around the country. Jeff Owens on NASCAR as they go racing this weekend at Phoenix. They go to the flat track at Phoenix. George Bryan III with us, birdies and bogeys around South Carolina. Of course, driving through Jacksonville and that part of Florida today as I was, the weather was just terrible, and play was suspended at the TPC as it was yesterday. Play was suspended today as well, but we'll talk more about what's happening there as well. Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Hoagie, Bryce Garnett, they are your leaders at 6 under par, and it does not look like we got any golf in today. Again, I've been traveling, so I'm catching up on stuff, but that appears to be the case. All right, we'll hit the break, and we'll be back.
Point weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Tonight, you'll have a 100% chance of rain with thunderstorms and gusty winds. That continues into tomorrow night with showers. We'll clear out for the afternoon, but we'll have very windy conditions. The high is 58. Bitter cold tomorrow night with a low of 23. Sunday, clear but chilly with a high around 55. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Warsaw's mayor is appealing for international help as the city becomes overwhelmed by refugees, with more than a tenth of all those fleeing the war in Ukraine arriving in the Polish capital. The welcome Warsaw has given Ukrainians as the nation struggles to resist Russia's invasion is wholehearted. Across the city, people have mobilized to help by collecting donations and volunteering at reception centers, but the challenge is enormous. Much of the burden so far is being carried by volunteers taking time off work, a situation not sustainable in the long run. Warsaw's mayor says the situation is getting more and more difficult every day. Another day of losses on Wall Street. The Dow dropped 229 points. The Nasdaq dropped 286. The S&P 500 declined 55. More details at srnnews.com.
Oh, good, you're home. I need your help.
Doing what?
Replacing our old light bulbs with these new energy-efficient LEDs.
Where did you get these?
Dominion Energy. I ordered direct from their online store. LEDs for every room, all at huge discounts.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. And my 15-bulb order got us free shipping.
Sounds too good to be true.
See for yourself at DominionEnergySC.com.
Where?
DominionEnergySC.com.
Certain restrictions apply.
You know what? I get asked every now and then, Kev, when you say my guy, do you really have a my guy at Palmetto Exterminators? Well, I really do. Ron Byers is my guy. Do you realize I've been a customer of Palmetto Exterminators for 20 years this summer? That's over the course of 3 homes, longer than my kids have been around. I'm loyal to Palmetto Exterminators for several reasons. First, they do a phenomenal job with pest control for a very fair price. It's just not a concern around my home. They take care of everything from regular visits to termite inspection, mosquito care. This is a company that's been around for more than 60 years serving the Midlands. When they come around, they're clean, they're courteous, and they're on time. Look, it's not just me. When it comes to things like those pesky mosquitoes, Palmetto Exterminators voted best of Columbia in Columbia Metropolitan for their mosquito control. I could have told you that before anyone even voted. What else can you possibly need from your pest control company? If you're looking for someone to help you, look no further than my guy, Ron Byers, Palmetto Exterminators. Online, it's palmettoexterminators.net, or call them 254-5833, 254-5833.
Hi, this is Marsha Clayman.
And I'm Karen Pickard. We're your hosts for the Positive Point on Aging.
We'll talk about aging gracefully and senior care every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9 o'clock a.m.
Join us right here on The Point for the Positive Point on Aging.
Brought to you by Oakley Village of Lexington.
Hi, Chris Neely here from the South Carolina Public Charter School District. Join me every Tuesday afternoon at 5:30 with Kev as we put our kids first. We'll answer all your questions about charter schools in the Palmetto State. Kids first, every Tuesday afternoon at 5:30 on The Point. Fran Halloran here. Now listen closely to what I'm about to say. I'm a business owner, and many of you listening right now, you're business owners as well. The first rule in owning a business is this: don't waste money. I see business owners waste their marketing dollars all the time. Not me. I figured out a long time ago, 8 years ago to be exact, that spending my marketing dollars at The Point was not only intentional, but extremely profitable as well. If you're a small business owner, you owe it to yourself to sit down with Kevin Cohen and ask him to create a custom marketing plan for your business. He's looking for folks just like you who believe in local, to partner with him in 2022 and beyond. Trust me when I tell you, partnering with The Point works. You will see results and your marketing budget will no longer be wasted. Give Kev a call at 803-563-8558 and tell him the Money Coach sent you.
Back we are on Sports Talk on this Friday night. Good to be back with you, Phil Kornblut, somewhere in South Carolina. Who knows where I am? I'm in a very fine garden spot of South Carolina. Making my way back from Tampa. I was hoping to get back into the studio. That was the plan, but a lot of traffic issues, as you might expect. I-75 was surprisingly backed up a lot today coming out of Tampa, heading north. Cut over through Ocala, around Gainesville, came up 301, hit I-10, cut over to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville into Georgia, and then the 3 lanes into Georgia were pretty good. Of course, there was the backup going into South Carolina because we can't afford to have 3 lanes in South Carolina on that side of I-95. Only in Florence County can we afford to have 3 lanes on I-95 in South Carolina. Never have figured that out. So 3 lanes down to 2. Everything was backed up going into South Carolina. But then it was flowing. But then there was some incident at about mile marker 70. And at about mile marker 62 or so, it started backing up. And then it stopped. So I hit the back roads and went as far as I could until I had to stop so I could join in on the show. I really wanted to be on the show tonight after the game last night, because what's the purpose of me going and covering a game if I can't be on the show the next night to talk about it? Sort of a waste of the company's money. By the way, Smitty, speaking of the company's money, which we're about out of, but I think, is it possible, since you are our marketing manager, that we somehow acquire the access to a jet for future trips?
I don't see why not, Corn. I think it only makes sense. You've been complaining about I-95 for these many years. I think we've got to get a G6. We've got to just go right over I-95.
Nah, I'll take a G5. It doesn't have to be a 6. I'll take a 5. You might get a 5 at a better price.
I'm going to start pricing used choppers, and we'll just see how far that gets us.
That'll work. All right, our phone line's 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. If you'd like to join in, oh, my goodness, didn't realize we had calls lining up. I thought it was just going to be us talking tonight. Since 2002, more than $6 billion in lottery proceeds have been used to support South Carolina educational programs. Learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at sceducationlottery.com/education. Wins and playing for fun is a win for education. Let me update the scoreboard now that I have it in front of me. So Tennessee is on top of Mississippi State, 24-18, 7:38 to go in the half. Texas A&M beat Auburn, 67-62. Arkansas over LSU, 79-67. Miami and Duke coming up, Virginia Tech and North Carolina coming up in the ACC. In the MEAC, Morgan State leading Norfolk 22-21. That's late in the first half. And let's see what else looks good here. In the Big East, Providence is leading Creighton 6-4. Obviously early in that one. In the Big Ten, Indiana upset the number 1 seed, Illinois, 65-63. So we've had a couple of number 1 seeds go down today, seeds for their respective tournaments, Auburn and Illinois to this point. Houston beat Cincinnati. That's in the American Athletic Conference, 69-56. That was quarterfinal. And let's see what else. UAB over Middle Tennessee. What a ball game. In 3 overtime. 102-98. UAB over Middle Tennessee. Davidson beat Fordham. All that guy does there is win. He's 26-5, 74-56. Bob McKillop. Don't think he ever wants to go anywhere else. All he does is win at Davidson, and he doesn't have a Curry in his lineup. Iowa beat Rutgers 84-74. And, of course, tonight, Vanderbilt and Kentucky. How about Vanderbilt winning 2 games in the SEC tournament? Jerry Stackhouse and company riding high, feeling pretty good, feeling pretty salty. But they get to see Kentucky, and they'll be a packed house of Kentucky fans, I'm sure. If you're the SEC, the worst case, almost the worst case scenario has happened. Having Florida lose in their first game, that wasn't good for attendance. Then Auburn, a bunch of Auburn people, a lot of Auburn people bought tickets, of course. Well, they're done. It will be a nightmare if Kentucky's upset by Vanderbilt tonight. I mean, you don't want to have a semifinals of Texas A&M and Vanderbilt holding 2 of your slots there, okay? And Arkansas's got one of them. So I'm sure privately the bookkeepers of the SEC are praying that Kentucky and Tampa, the people of Tampa, praying that Kentucky wins tonight. Baseball, we told you Clemson a winner 9-6 over Northeastern, and it was Mac Anglin winning. He's 3-0, and his ERA is down to 1.71. Tigers are undefeated. They continue to roll along, and as far as some of the numbers, it was let's see, for the Tigers, 9 runs on 9 hits. They did commit 2 errors, left 6. Northeastern, 6 runs on 5 hits, no errors. They left 7. And offensively for the Tigers, Brewer, who's from Latta, home of champions, he had 3 hits on the day, an RBI, had a double. Wagner had a couple of hits and 2 RBIs, including a home run. He's now batting .389. Engel had a hit, 2 RBIs. He's batting .438. French had a hit and an RBI for the Tigers. Grice had a hit and scored a run. He's cooled off to .275. Anglin, the winner, 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, both earned. Walked 4, struck out 2. ERA's down to 1.71. Lindley gave him an inning, and he allowed 2 runs, but neither was earned. He walked 1, and he struck out 1. Dill went 2/3 of an inning, struck out 1. Talent went an inning and a third, allowed a hit. And Reed finished up with an inning of work, 1 hit, 2 runs, both earned. He walked 1 and hit a batter. So Tigers hit a couple of batters, their pitching staff. They walked 6, struck out 4, which is kind of the opposite of what Monty Lee's been talking about, pounding the strike zone. Not so much today, but they got the win nonetheless. South Carolina and Texas rained out today, going to try and play tomorrow and try and play 2 on Sunday. Other baseball, and we got some actual ACC games. Notre Dame and NC State are 4-4 in the top of the 10th. Wofford leading Lafayette 7-1, bottom of the 8th. Penn over Winthrop 8-4, top of the 8th. Boston College and Miami tonight. Tennessee, Rhode Island scoreless in the 2nd. Vanderbilt 9-0 over Wagner in the 6th. Auburn, Middle Tennessee State, Santa Clara, Texas A&M. That is what I've got on the baseball scoreboard. Smitty, do you have any other in-state games that I might be missing, or did I hit everything up as far as you know?
Did you mention PC and Georgia State?
No, sir.
Okay, I got PC falling to Georgia State earlier today, 11-6. The Panthers knocked off the Blue Hose there.
Okay.
And Wofford is
right,
leading
very
Lafayette 7-1. I think you did mention that. And USC Upstate got 3 touchdowns.
Ooh. They scored 21?
20-7. Missed an extra point.
Who'd they beat?
USC Upstate 20, Northern Kentucky 7.
Was Darren Horn coaching that Northern Kentucky baseball team?
The defense let them down for sure.
Indeed. All right. With all that said, let's get to the phone calls. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery. Lucky number here on Sports Talk. Hank in Columbia lining up first for us tonight. Hank, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Corn. You forgot to mention Dentsville Middle School 6. Blue Ridge.
I am so sorry I missed that score, Hank. I try to cover everything, you know.
Anything else?
We try to cover everything here on Sports Talk. You know that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I don't know. I was listening to, I think it's Matt Smitty's question about the basketball team. I think the thing that's going to be hard is one of the things that's made it extremely hard for, I think, South Carolina and Clemson has just been location. When you talk about like a team like Michigan, you look at the amount of players in the Chicago, Detroit area and those schools. And so therefore, like schools like DePaul and all those are able to get really talented players. And I think what has hurt Carolina and Clemson, Corn, you say this probably over the last 20, 30 years is that anytime there's a really, really talented player that, and we've had some good ones that have come out of South Carolina, a lot of times the battle that South Carolina goes up against is your North Carolina Dukes and all that. They don't turn their nose to South Carolina. Anytime we got a good player, every time you look, Krzyzewski's in the gym when he was coaching, and Roy Williams is in the gym, and that's what the two teams have to fight against. And so for either coach, it makes it hard, makes it extremely difficult unless they have really a good strong end with the high school coaches, And I think with Carolina, and you probably saw this last night, Corn, it's not that all the Carolina players are so bad. It's the problem that the only time that Frank Martin has been good with Carolina is when we've had a really good, big, athletic, big guys. You remember the first couple of years Frank got here, they were struggling some. And then when Lamonis and those grew up, they were pretty good that year with him and Medalgas, Kachinas. And then they had a little slump off, and then they were good again once he had Silva in there, in the middle. And if you don't have that talented big guy like last night, Mississippi State came out of the locker room and said, "We're just going to apply a ton of pressure on the guards in the second half, and the big guys down there are going to fumble the ball away. They're going to miss half the layups, and that makes it easy to play." And so
you make a good point. You make a good point. I mean, the bigs this year have been a major disappointment. They're bigs he signed, of course. Now Woodley's young, coming on. What's his face? He didn't even play last night. Well, Levesque had a terrible year for whatever reason. But then the other big man didn't even play last night.
Didn't play. Wilson didn't even play.
Well, Wilson didn't play, and the other big man.
What about Minot?
Well, Minot didn't play, but the other big man, who am I forgetting? What's his name?
Gray. You're talking about
Gray. Yeah, he didn't play. Yeah. He didn't play. So, and that was a question that I wanted to ask Martin last night, and I forgot to get around to it. But yeah, and he had talked about Gray being a guy that would have helped him going into the game. He said he was a guy because of his size, and now that he had the cast off his wrist, he thought he could play and help him, but he didn't play at all. So I don't know what that was all about. So, yeah, the bigs were a disaster this year, just a disaster. And you're right.
And that hurt them.
Yeah, when they've been good, they've had some good inside play.
Yeah, that hurt them. And so that's one of the issues at Clemson with Clemson and Carolina is basically being able to, their talent. A guy in Michigan normally can keep a Michigan guy up there. Clemson and Carolina, they can court a guy and do whatever they want to. And that junior year, here comes the Tar Heels and Duke, and that love, and you lose them. And so, that's just the thing. And I don't know. This is the thing I guess Carolina has asked. A coach has 18-13 or 18-12. how will it be played if we fire a winning coach? Most of the time we fire coaches in basketball, it's been apparent it's looked like Tom Crean. But if we fire a winning coach, how is it going to do for us when we get ready to attract a coach, given how the national media kind of talks about South Carolina? They talk more about Frank Martin than they talk about South Carolina.
Yeah, and thanks for your phone call. We need to run. Yeah, the reaction nationally, if South Carolina were to do something, it would be pretty negative for the reasons that Hank said. A winning coach, a winning record, and yeah, he hadn't gotten to the tournament, but he's done a lot of good things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you could expect that kind of reaction. But you know what? If you feel like you got to make a change, and I'm not saying one way or the other, to be honest with you, I'm not here. It's not my position. It's not our position to call for somebody's job unless they're just god awful. I mean, if they're just a bad person and they're just god awful, then we would sit here and say, yeah, they need to make a change. I don't think that's the case here. That's why I'm saying and suggesting that it's a tough call for Ray Tanner again, as they are we back where it was last year? No, I think after last year there was a decision, as we reported. I stand by it. There was a decision to move on, and then it got complicated in a number of different ways. Are there people at the same point now than they were at this time last year? I don't know. I haven't been told anything. I don't know. I think there's some frustration, but then again, you have to look at the improvement in the program and also the hope for the future. And the hope for the future is that a good number of these players will come back to give them a very solid nucleus. There'll be improvement. They've got a good-looking 3, 2 signed and a third committed, and then G.G. Jackson. How do you feel about South Carolina's chances to get him if Frank Martin stays in place? And then if Frank Martin stays in place, is he going to get him? And is that enough of a reason to stick with a coach if you think you're going to get the number one player in the country by sticking with him? In the minds of many, that's plenty of reason. All right, we got to hit a break, and we'll bring you some of Frank Martin from last night. And then we will get into more of our great Friday night lineup, including Brian Ralphie on round ball, Jeff Owens on NASCAR, George Bryan on golf, all that coming up in our next hour here on Sports Talk. So we'll be back in a moment. Bring you some Frank Martin and a whole bunch more. Don't go away.
It's almost time for the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. I know we're excited.
Me too. I'm going for all the awesome camping gear.
Not to mention they have everything I need to get out on the river.
I'm looking forward to it. I can always find what I need for my outdoor adventures.
Don't miss the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic at the State Fairgrounds, sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance, March 25th through the 27th. Purchase your tickets now at psclassic.com.
See you at the Classic.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
There was just a lack of Black women, business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives. Growing up, I didn't see that. I figured out that I wanted to be a photographer for women of color. I found my niche and I'm sticking to it.
Each year, the South Carolina Education Lottery raises millions of dollars for scholarships and grants that help students prepare for their dream career. Just like Kristen, your passion is our purpose.
Okay, we're back on Sports Talk. Here is a little bit from Frank Martin following last night's loss in the opening round for the Gamecocks of the SEC tournament, falling to Mississippi State. And here's Frank Martin addressing the media and taking questions.
Couldn't deal with them inside. They made a consensus effort of attacking the paint on offense, and in the first half, we made some threes, and it offset the fact that we were getting outplayed in the paint. And then the second half, we shot 12% from the field, and so we couldn't offset all the lack of production in the paint offensively and defensively, because it wasn't just them driving the ball and scoring it. We couldn't come up with the ball, and we got beat to loose balls. We got beat to the offensive glass. Anderson Garcia, huge. His personality on this team was clear as day today. He started, I think he had 3 offensive rebounds in the first 5 possessions of the game. He created the personality that how the game evolved, and whoever wins the paint wins the game. And they dominated the paint. We had no answer there.
Frank, you ever sat through a worse 20 minutes in your coaching career, both in terms of offensive performance, defensive performance, the whole ball of wax?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think our effort was bad. I mean, they did shoot 39% from the field. I mean, it's not like we didn't defend. We started fouling them too much towards the latter part of the second half. But offensively, I was disappointed in some of the shots we took. I thought, the question that was asked earlier about Keyshawn's play, that wasn't the only one. It was I want to say, I mean, I'm going off the top of my head here, but there was about a 5-6 possession segment where we go Keyshawn breakaway. Devin creates a steal. We end up Devin and Jermaine in a 2-on-1. Jermaine decides to shoot an off the dribble 3 in the open court, and then Devin comes down and makes a great pass to James Reese, and he's got a wide open 3, and he don't let it go, and instead he passes it to Brandon, and Brandon shoots an air ball. Those are 3 really deflating plays. And you say, well, Jermaine makes that off the dribble 3. Yeah, he does. But when you're in a 2-on-1, you got to go get the rim. And that's not the time for that shot. But that's, players make decisions. It's, as coaches, it's our job to trust in them, that they're going to make the decisions. And, they're human beings. Sometimes they make good decisions. Sometimes they don't. It's part of the deal. But I've never been on a team that shot 12% for a half. That's first for me. And, I'm going to use this moment to kind of answer Mike's question from earlier. Our deficiencies offensively all year comes from when teams hound us hard on the perimeter. And Mississippi State's got size and athleticism on the perimeter. So people get after us on the perimeter. And anytime you're playing basketball, if people are going to hound you on the perimeter, you got to get the ball inside the defense in the paint. And that's been our weak point all year.
All right, that's some of Frank Martin from last night. All of it is on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. One baseball score I don't think we mentioned, Coastal Carolina lost today to Xavier, the mighty Musketeers, coming through the state of South Carolina. They beat Upstate twice. They beat the Gamecocks, and they beat Coastal Carolina in the first of a weekend series, 9-5. So, Xavier's a pretty good club. They're showing that as they go through the state of South Carolina. So they beat Coastal today.
They beat
that
Winthrop,
series
too.
will continue.
They beat Winthrop yesterday
beat Winthrop
as well.
Too?
Yeah, 14-2 at Winthrop.
Holy cow. I didn't realize that. So do not sleep on the Xavier baseball team. Okay? They look pretty doggone good. All right, top of the hour break. Those of you on the phones we couldn't get to, check back with us later. We might take some calls in the latter part of the show. We're going to dive deeper into March Madness, the conference tournaments with Brian Ralph coming up, and a whole bunch more. We'll be back after the top of the hour break.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. A late winter storm is expected to hit the eastern part of the United States with rain, ice, and snow. National Weather Service senior meteorologist Brian Hurley says parts of Maine could get up to a foot of snow this weekend.
It's kind of like Maine is split in half. You know, there's a northwest half where the forecast is 6 to 12 inches, and then the southeast half is more 1 to 4 inches.
Hurley says the storm is also expected to bring close to a half a foot of rain to northern Florida. The United States is warning of possible use of chemical and biological weapons in Ukraine by Russia, but in the UN today, Russia accused the U.S. of attempting to use the weapons. Addressing the UN Security Council, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield says Russia is doing exactly what the U.S. warned it would do.
Russia is attempting to use the Security Council to legitimize disinformation and deceive people to justify President Putin's war of choice against the Ukrainian people.
The Russian request for the Security Council meeting followed a U.S. rejection of Russian accusations that Ukraine is operating chemical and biological labs with U.S. support. The nation's strongest pro-life law has been affirmed by the Texas Supreme Court. Senate Bill 8 prohibits abortions after a baby's heartbeat can be detected. The law also makes no exceptions in cases of rape or incest. Attorneys for the so-called Center for Reproductive Rights said the case is effectively over after the ruling. Abortions in Texas have plummeted by more than 50% since the law took effect. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 229 points, the Nasdaq dropped 286, the S&P 500 lower by 55, and oil up to 109.33 a barrel. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
This is Dennis Prager. If God saved the Jews in Egypt, why didn't he save the Jews in Europe? Was there really an Exodus? My new book answers these and other questions. It's called The Rational Passover Haggadah, about the oldest holiday in the world. Just like my commentary, The Rational Bible, The Rational Passover Haggadah, my newest book, relies on reason. Relevant to non-Jews, Jews, and people of no faith. The Rational Passover Haggadah.
Available at PragerStore.com or wherever books are sold.
Conservative Political Action Committee Chairman Matt Schlapp is calling on Florida parents to support Florida's parental rights and education bill. He says many corporations, including the Walt Disney Corporation, are lining up against the initiative from Governor Ron DeSantis.
Well, I'll just say I find it just outrageous and disgusting that Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney's name is being used to push a bunch of stuff on kids at tender ages.
Schlapp says there's no reason for corporations to lobby against Florida's Parents' Rights in Education bill.
People can have differences of opinion on how we handle some of these questions about gender and sexual orientation, but there really shouldn't be a difference of opinion about the primacy of parents.
Schlapp was interviewed by the Salem Radio Network. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Tonight, you'll have a 100% chance of rain with thunderstorms and gusty winds. That continues into tomorrow night with showers. We'll clear out for the afternoon, but we'll have very windy conditions. The high is 58. Bitter cold tomorrow night with a low of 23. Sunday, clear but chilly with a high around 55. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DM.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Okay, we're back with you, Sports Talk Media Network on a Friday night. Good for the weekend being here. What do we have this weekend? We'll catch up with the TPC. We hope the weather will clear up. We got racing at Phoenix. We got the basketball tournaments continuing. We got college baseball. We got the opening of spring training for the major leaguers. As I was heading out of Tampa, I think I saw Aaron Judge passed me on the highway heading towards the Yankee complex there, I think. So anyway, we're looking forward to all that and more this weekend. Spring football practice continuing for Clemson, and Tiger's going to have a number of recruits in for their practice tomorrow. Younger guys, most of the guys visiting are going to be in that 24 class and younger. South Carolina will crank up spring practice next week, so we look forward to having that to deal with for a little while. And let me say one quick thing about the post-game comments from Frank Martin there, and my question in particular, as I went back and listened to it, as I said at the early part of the show in talking about the game, it really, and I was wrong with my question. I didn't think it clearly. It should have been just the last 10 and a half minutes, not the entire second half. They weren't terrible the entire second half, just the last 10 and a half minutes. They couldn't throw it in the ocean. So that was not the best worded question, the way I asked that question. So I just want to make that clear that I realize that. But you know what? At one point today in their loss to Texas A&M, Auburn was 1 for 17 from the floor. I don't know if it's the sight lines at that arena. They talk about the rims being too tight. I thought the balls looked kind of slick. I thought the Gamecocks and other players on other teams were having some difficulty hanging on to the basketball. Let's dive deeper into the SEC, the ACC, the other tournaments around the country. We get ready for Selection Sunday. We welcome in from HeatCheckBB.com, Brian Ralphie on Round Ball, joining us here on Sports Talk once again. I know his eyes are bloodshot. He probably hasn't had any sleep the last 3 or 4 days. Ralphie, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm drinking a lot of coffee, but doing well.
I bet. This is the time of year you basketball junkies live for. So of the conference tournaments to this point last week, and I guess primarily this week, what's standing out in your mind thus far? I guess maybe the 2 number 1 seeds going down today, the SEC and the Big Ten, and maybe something else?
Yeah, that's the big storyline, not just because of the 1 seeds, but the flip side of it, the bubble teams. Indiana had pretty much a win-and-in situation ahead of them with Illinois. We're able to get that. It looks like Indiana has now moved from the bubble to being in the NCAA tournament. And on the SEC side, Texas A&M goes from probably outside of the bubble conversation to right on the cusp. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. And that's been the big story, I think, over the last day and a half, is early on, we saw a lot of the bubble teams lose early and not help themselves. You can point to the ACC for that as well, with the way Notre Dame lost, knocking themselves out early, and the way Wake Forest lost too, potentially putting their season in jeopardy with their loss to Boston College. Those teams hadn't taken care of business, but really over the last day and a half or 24 hours, really, the bubble teams have taken care of business and gotten the wins they needed, which I think as of right now, as we stand, has created one of the more intriguing bubble conversations that includes a large number of teams that I can remember.
Yeah. Let me update. Tennessee is leading Mississippi State at the half. It's tight, 39-37. Miami has jumped on Duke 15-7 at the ACC tournament. and you got Virginia Tech, North Carolina coming up, and you've got Kentucky and Vanderbilt coming up down the SEC. What about the noise Virginia Tech's making at the ACC tournament? They've got 21 wins, and they've won a couple of games in the tournament, looking to knock off a big target in North Carolina. What about the way that tournament's playing out?
Yeah, well, Virginia Tech in particular, that was a team that we had ranked in our preseason top 25 at HXCBB. They came in with legitimate expectations of being one of the ACC's top 4, top 5 teams. It didn't play out that way during the season. Instead of taking a step forward, a lot of guys on that team took a step back, didn't shoot as well as they did last year. Kevin Aluma, we were expecting to be an all-ACC caliber player like he was last year, and that wasn't necessarily the case on a consistent basis at the very least. So this team has the talent, and they were probably more talented than the Notre Dame team that they beat last night. Notre Dame is a team that really overachieved, and so maybe we're just seeing water finding its level, so to speak. We'll see what happens tonight in Carolina against Virginia Tech, because UNC really seems to have turned a corner. I think that the Duke victory in Cameron may have created a spark that this team needed. So we'll see what happens there. But the ACC tournament is certainly living up to the billing.
All right, of course, with conference tournaments now winding to a close, teams are losing. That means teams are firing coaches. It was reported by the AJC, of course, Tom Crean was going to be let go at Georgia. I don't think they've officially announced it yet. Joe Dooley, a one-time USC assistant, fired at East Carolina after 4 seasons. That school announced that late this afternoon. Their season ended with a loss to Cincinnati, 74-63, 15-15, 6-11 in conference play, 44-67 in 4 seasons at East Carolina. I mean, Jeff Lebo, I don't remember what his overall record was there, but I don't know if it was I don't think it was a winning record. I'm just thinking to myself, if Jeff Lebo can't win at ECU, I don't know if anybody can win at ECU. And then just seeing here coming out tonight that Missouri is parting ways with Conzo Martin. And that was Conzo Martin at one point, of course, was flying high in college basketball when he was at Tennessee, and then he went out to California, came back to Missouri, and now he is out. What do you make of these particular moves, and what else are you expecting around the country?
Well, that's going to be what's interesting coming down the stretch here. A lot of those openings were expected. Some maybe were hopeful. If you ask some Missouri fans, I think they felt like they really needed a change. I think the bigger key now is figuring out which coaches stay where they're at and which coaches go and take these jobs, because there aren't that many great, clear candidates from the mid-major level to move up into these jobs. There are a lot of really good mid-major coaches around the country, but there aren't any obvious stars ready for a next level position like Porter Moser was last year, Chicago's coach who went to Oklahoma. There aren't any obvious stars like those waiting in the wings. So a lot of these guys, Georgia, Missouri certainly included, you can even go to Maryland, Big Ten, Louisville, and the ACC, are hoping to poach some other power conference candidates. I know Maryland had their eyes really set on USC head coach Andy Enfield, who was head coach of Florida Gulf Coast when they made their Sweet 16 rounds at 15 seed, but he recently signed an extension. He kind of used the Maryland chatter to give himself a nice pay raise where he's at. A lot of those teams are targeting those kind of guys. Seton Hall's Kevin Willard is one that's being rumored for a lot of these. It remains to be seen if he'll leave or if he'll do the same thing and get an extension from Seton Hall. Providence is Ed Cooley. He has the Friars ranked in the top 10. That he's someone who these schools are going after as well. We'll see if he stays and gets that extension, or if he does leave. That to me is the more intriguing, I think, subplot here over the next couple of weeks, because there aren't going to be, at least there should not be, any more significant major openings, I wouldn't think, unless one of those coaches were to move and take another job.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ralphie, far be it from me to say North Carolina could possibly ever be underrated, but it seems to me this is a team maybe not getting the credit for the way that it's playing with the big win at Cameron Indoor. I know their net ranking isn't there, But the way they're playing, to me, in the last 2 weeks, I feel like they perhaps are not getting enough love.
We will find out tonight and tomorrow night if they win, because there is the potential. I alluded to this a little bit earlier. There was the potential that they really turned a corner with that Duke game, right? Up until that point, this was a team that had one quad one win on the year. They didn't have any bad losses, aside from the one loss to Pitt at home in Chapel Hill, which I think is important to remember. This is a team that did get handled by Pitt and Chapel Hill. Aside from that, took care of business against lesser competition, but did not have the success you would expect against the better teams they played, those quad one games. They were blown out by Wake Forest. They were blown out, and so a lot of their non-conference games, blown out by Purdue, blown out by Tennessee, blown out in that first game against Duke as well. What they did against Duke and Cameron that they had not done was show a lot of fight, show the mental fortitude to fight back, to take a team's best punch or a run and answer against that level of competition, and then push the accelerator and hit that extra gear. They did that against Duke, and then obviously handled Virginia last night in a way that I don't think any of us were really expecting them to. So we'll find out again as they face a good Virginia Tech team, and then potentially in the ACC tournament finals if they were to win that, if this is something that is maybe just a
Hey, Brian,
or if that Duke game flipped the switch and showed something for the Star Heels team that we have to monitor moving forward.
Hey, Brian, just a quick question regarding potential upsets. So thus far in conference tournaments, we have seen the top seed in 3 out of the 5 power conferences not make it past the quarterfinals. Auburn in the SEC, Baylor in the Big 12, and Illinois in the Big 10. Do you think this has more to do with maybe them looking ahead at the NCAA tournament, or is this maybe a sample of what's to come in the NCAA tournament this year, maybe seeing just lots of upsets?
I think it's a combination of them largely facing bubble teams who are desperate, who needed wins. Oklahoma, who beat Baylor, was one of those teams that was right on the cut line and needed a big win, got it against Baylor. That always happens this time of year where you have a desperate team, the back's against the wall, can sometimes play the best game of the season. But also a lot of these top teams are flawed. Now, we've talked in the past about how Auburn is a good but not great team away from home. We saw that against Texas A&M. Baylor has dealt with some injuries, certainly, but is not the juggernaut they looked like in December and January. You can go down the list. Kansas, it doesn't look the part of a typical Kansas team necessarily. Even Gonzaga, even though they won their conference tournament, certainly is not as good as they were last year. I think this top tier of teams is certainly very good, but there is no inevitable force out there. Like last year, it was very clear Gonzaga and Baylor were the 2 best teams. No one was really going to touch them. That's not the case this year. So I think we could see a scenario where we do get chaos in the NCAA tournament.
Chaos. We love chaos. Last thing, we'll let you go. What do you and your people think will come of the NCAA allegations now, public allegations against Will Wade, who the more I watch Will Wade, I think he's like the biggest scumbag in all of college basketball, not just from all that, just his demeanor now. Well, I mean, today I was driving, listening to their game, and they lose, and I don't know, there was some sort of skirmish or something with him. I know he was teed up during the game, and according to the play-by-play announcers, who were the SEC radio network play-by-play announcers, who have no idea who they are, but apparently at the end of the game, he was yelling at the officials. He was yelling at the scorer's table. They said, I didn't see it, I'm just going by their description. He was, I think, maybe pounding the scorer's table or something as he was walking off. He just seems like a jerk. And I think whatever comes his way from the FBI, the NCAA, he probably deserves. What do you think about all that?
I mean, he's on wiretap, breaking NCAA rules pretty much. But he still has his job right now, and we know all that, right? So part of me very much thinks that because this is Will Wade, there's something kind of Teflon about him, and he'll find a way to keep his job. That's going to become a more real possibility if LSU does make a little bit in the NCAA tournament here, because we all know that winning will make a lot of people overlook a lot of things. And LSU is experiencing some success on the basketball court that they have not been able to really sustain really throughout the program's history. They're doing that right now under Will Wade. The logical person in me says that he won't be back next year. That if this gets settled as it should in the offseason, given what we already know, again, about what he's on wiretap saying about breaking NCAA rules, I will be shocked if there's not some show cause penalty he sit with that forces LSU to basically fire him. And there was, if something does come from the FBI investigation from the NCAA standpoint, he can be fired with cause, and LSU doesn't have to pay him a buyout. His buyout drops to zero. So I would anticipate that being the likely course of action here this offseason. But again, this is the NCAA. This is LSU. This is Will Wade.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, if something would have happened, it would have happened by now. So I would probably lean 90% he's not going to be back in the offseason if all this goes down. But you never know.
Brian, as always, we enjoyed it. We appreciate you. Enjoy your basketball all through the night, all through the weekend. And next week, we'll be talking to you about the actual tournament play. So we look forward to that. Have a great weekend, my man.
I can't wait. You guys do the same.
Thank you very much. Brian Ralph, Ralphie on Roundball, heatcheckcbb.com is where you can read his stuff and those of his compadres. All right, let's hit the break, and we'll come back and catch up on the NASCAR scene with Jeff Owens. 3 really good races in the books, but the television ratings are not reflecting that to this point. We go to Phoenix this weekend, and we'll see if we get a very competitive race and maybe another different winner to start the season out here on the NASCAR scene. Jeff Owens on NASCAR coming up after the break.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
Sports fans, are you in it to win it? Join South Carolina's fight against COVID-19 by getting your vaccine today. Vaccines are safe and will help stabilize school operations by bringing us back together safely. The CDC recommends everyone 5 years and older get vaccinated. Visit scdhec.gov/VaxLocator or call 866-365-8110 to find a vaccination station near you.
Basketball, Coastal Carolina is going to host an opening round game of the Basketball Classic presented by Eracism. And that'll be on Monday, 7 o'clock at the HTC Center. Opening round opponent will be named at a later date. Maybe they'll pair them up with Wofford. Wofford's in this event as well. So the Classic will honor HBCU legends with the opening games of the tournament, with the CCU game honoring Zelmo Beatty. Remember that name? 2-time NAIA All-American during his career at Prairie View from 58 to 62. And then he was quite a good player in the NBA. And, of course, our man, Chris Bergen, will be all over that when the time comes. There's nothing like the Basketball Classic, which is, of course, a brand new deal. It's a brand new deal. Waiting to hook up with Jeff Owens. Pat, let me know when we have Jeff. We do have Jeff. We welcome in. Can we have the music anyway?
Absolutely.
Got to have my music.
Can't not sing along with this. 1 second. Here you go.
Yeah, here we go. Got to have it.
Love it when it's forward. Love it when it's fast. Love it when the leaders talk. The pack is moving past. Love it when they make you lots and lots of noise. Can't wait to hear these double racing boys. Love it when they're drafting, love it when they slide, love it when the back straight, throttle's open wide. Love it when they're making lots and lots of noise. Can't wait to hear these doubles say, boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys.
All right, we welcome in Jeff Owens in the fast lane. Good to have you with us once again. And I think you got to be impressed with the racing through the first three races. Great finishes, very competitive. A lot of different guys running up in the top 10, top 20. I think it's a good start.
Yeah, no question, Phil. I mean, so far, they're getting exactly what they promised with this new car. I mean, we've seen a lot of parity, a lot of guys, a lot of new faces running up front. And I think that's pretty good for the sport. Yeah, we saw a lot of competition last week. We saw some new players going for the win. And then there at the end, a caution flag mixed things up, and we got a little bit of a surprise winner. And, I think NASCAR's got to be thrilled so far with what they've seen in these first three races.
What about from a mechanical standpoint, some of the new things in the new gen car, the one lug nut or whatever they call it? I just call it a lug nut. The one lug nut on the tires. How's that working out? Are they satisfied through 3 weekends?
I think so. I think there's still some glitches to work out, and there's some small things that they're still working on. We've seen a lot of guys have some tire problems. We've seen some wheels come off, things like that they're working on and trying to tighten up a little bit. One of the most bizarre things I've seen is that for 2 weeks in a row now, Tyler Reddick has had a problem in his car with his left leg going numb. And that seems to be a result of a different seat. These cars are a little bit lower. The seats are a little different. They're the pedals are positioned a little bit differently, and it's caused a few drivers to sort of have a little bit of discomfort in their legs, and they're working on that. But I think all of those things are pretty minor fixes, and they knew going in with a new car like this that they didn't really know a lot about, that there would be some minor problems that they'd have to work on. But I think they're working through those, and and I think give them another 6 weeks or so, and we probably won't see any problems at all with the car.
Do you think Kevin Harvick is ever going to win again?
That's a great question. We were talking about that the other day. It's hard to say because, it very well could be a case where age has caught up to Kevin Harvick. We see that happen all the time when these drivers get into their 40s. At some point, they just sort of fall off the map. We saw that, even the greatest. I mean, we saw that with Jimmy Johnson. Is that happening to Harvick right now? It could be. I mean, he went winless last year. He hasn't really come close to doing anything this year. And I think the greatest telltale sign is that he's getting outrun by his teammates. Eric Almirola has been up there. In fact, he's the only driver with 3 top 10 finishes so far. Chase Briscoe, their other teammate, has been up front. And Harvick just can't seem to get it together. So I don't know. I don't know if there's something wrong with his team. His team's cars seem to be running fine, but Harvick continues to struggle. But he very well may be at that point in his career where he's about to fall off the map. And if he continues to struggle and maybe has another bad year, that may be the end for him.
Yeah, he's led one lap. He's won one lap through the 3 races. Real quick, a couple of the keys to winning at Phoenix. What do you see?
Well, it's going to be really interesting with this car because this is a wide, flat track with big sweeping turns. It's relatively flat, so they're going to have to get the car to turn really well. Tires will be a factor like always, but I'm looking for them to spread out, and we could see some 3 and even 4 wide racing all weekend. And you know, I think parity, again, is probably going to be the name of the game. I mean, you want to sit here and say, you know, watch the Hendrick cars and Gibbs and all that, but the way things are right now, you never know who's going to come out there for a win. But another big test for this car, and I look forward to be an exciting race.
Jeff, as always, we really appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be right back.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's your weekend forecast. Tonight, you'll have a 100% chance of rain with thunderstorms and gusty winds. That continues into tomorrow night with showers. We'll clear out for the afternoon, but we'll have very windy conditions. The high is 58. Bitter cold tomorrow night with a low of 23. Sunday, clear but chilly with a high around 55. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
When you think about spring, good stuff springs to mind. You know, like spring break.
Woohoo!
A friend springing for drinks.
Thanks, dude.
A spring in your step. Spring fever.
Oh, behave.
And best of all, spring water dough pizza from the Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers.
Yeah, baby.
Experience the taste of spring with our amazing hand-tossed pies, spring fresh salads, and over 100 beers from around the world. Enjoy spring at the Mellow Mushroom in the Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. Ukrainian authorities are warning of a humanitarian catastrophe in the port city of Mariupol, which has been encircled by Russian forces and cut off from deliveries of food and medicine. Mariupol officials say more than 1,500 people have been killed in the 12 days since the siege began, and that they aren't able to bury all the dead. Mariupol's mayor is calling for Russian forces to lift the siege. Ukrainian authorities have accused Russian forces of shelling evacuation routes and preventing civilians from escaping the city of 430,000 people. On Wall Street, another day of losses. The Dow was down by 229 points. The Nasdaq dropped 286. The S&P 500 lower by 55, and oil up $3.31 to $109.33 a barrel. More details at srnnews.com.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
If you're like me, you're sick and tired of seeing these old TV stars, game show hosts, these athletes telling you how to save money on your Medicare and on your health insurance. These national toll-free numbers are overwhelming us. It's not that people don't need the service. They need good local customer service, not big box toll-free numbers. See, I work directly with Tim Hanberry right here at Medicare Blueprint in the Midlands. When it comes to my family, I want the best family plan. I'm not even on Medicare, but my mom is. So here's what I do want. Someone local to serve as my advisor on the plans and choices that I have, and someone to help mom with her Medicare. I want someone to help me pick the right plan, save me as much money as possible by knowing all the rules of the game. Medicare Blueprint starts the process with you. They will see it through. They answer all your questions. They call you back. It's the same folks helping you start to finish. Tim and his team are independent. They fight for you, not the insurance company. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398.
Hi, this is Marcia Clayman.
And I'm Karen Pickard. We're your hosts for the Positive Point on Aging.
We'll talk about aging gracefully and senior care every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9 o'clock a.m.
Join us right here on The Point for the Positive Point on Aging.
Brought to you by Oakley Village of Lexington.
Attention listeners, con artists have many tricks for stealing your money, but the AARP Fraud Watch Network is here to help you protect yourself and your family. We give you the tools you need to spot and avoid scams. So listen for the AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts. Use our scam tracking map to see the latest scams and sign up for prevention tips and alerts from law enforcement. To learn how to outsmart con artists before they strike, visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
Hi, honey. Were you able to drop by Tree Pharmacy today to pick up Mom's medications?
Yes, she sure is on a lot of meds.
I know. That's why I go over so often, to help make sure she's taking them correctly.
Well, I have great news. The pharmacist at True Pharmacy said He can pre-pack her medications into individual doses.
Wow. Knowing she's taking the right meds at the right time will give me great peace of mind. But how much does it cost?
That's the even better part. It's free. Just another great service they offer at True Pharmacy. True Pharmacy, 2 locations, Charleston Highway in West Columbia and Devine Street downtown.
Please continue to hold.
Straight down the middle. It went straight down the middle. Then it started to fall just a wee bit. That's when McKelly lost sight of it. That little white pellet has never been found to this day.
Okay, time to talk some golf here on Sports Talk. Birdies and bogeys around the state of South Carolina as we welcome in George Bryan III to Sports Talk. We talked earlier about the TPC. Unfortunately, rain today held up play, and hopefully things will clear up and they can get at it down at Ponte Vedra over the weekend. Dustin Johnson, he's only gotten in 16 holes, but he's 4 under par. Kevin Kisner, his first round score was 4 under 68. Who else from the States? Doc Redman, minus 171 for him. And let's see, Lucas Glover, plus 274. Some other scores from earlier. Rory McIlroy got in 15 holes yesterday, plus 1. Bubba Watson got in 16 holes. He's plus 1. Oh, Matthew Neesmith, even through 11. As I mentioned earlier, your leaders are Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Hoagie, and Bryce Garnett, all at 6 under par. As we welcome GB3 to the program, I don't know, what do you do when you're a pro golfer and you can't go out and play because of the rain? I mean, it has to really rain hard for these guys to be off the course. And I know there was some lightning and some thunderstorms rolling through the area as well because I drove through them on my way back from Tampa.
Hey, what you do is, first of all, you get into your heart and your mind, and you have a sense of humor. So you spend time in the locker room, watching TV, developing relationships in community, telling jokes, taking naps. They're all kind of cool, fun things to do in rain
Taking
delays.
naps. I like the taking nap part the most, I think.
Yeah, and there's, that is a huge part of pro golf is it is all weather, and they do play in the rain. They can't stop when they can't play in electricity, and I think they did run into some of that. And when the greens have an inch of water on them, they can't. They do occasionally play when it's a bit too wet, as they did last week. I don't want to miss what I think some of the big stories are. We had Tommy Gainey got in the hunt last week. I'm sure you probably talked about it this week. He finished tied for third down in Puerto Rico. Wait a second. Was it? Yeah. Puerto Rico. And then, but I think probably the story of the year is Ryan Brim winning when he had to. He had one event left to earn his tour card and full exempt status. He just blows the field away. So other stories kind of running parallel with that. Scheffler wins at the Arnold Palmer. Well, Ted Scott is caddying for Scotty Scheffler now. And Ted Scott was Bubba Watson's caddy, and I think one of the greatest caddy coaches on the PGA Tour. And I think he's proven that now. In fact, I made an attempt. It was one where I whiffed, but I will re-tee and try to squarely hit it where we get Mr. Ted Scott on our show. And speaking
Now,
of guests,
what is a caddy coach?
Well, he's a caddy, but he's one of the greatest personal coaches that I've ever met. He is incredibly. He's one of the big keys to Bubba Watson's success. And I tell you, I didn't really talk a lot about this to you, but I hope that we have Mark Ernst on the show. Well, I was having a little bit of trouble getting that one in the ground, teeing it up, and taking a swing, hitting it square. But I think we got Mark Ernst on the show now. I want to bring him in. Let's get him right. Let's let him tee it up and get in the mix on caddy. Mark spent quite a bit of time on the bag for both of his children. We do know that Austin Ernst is an LPGA superstar, but his son Drew, who I think is on his daughter's bag, well, he'll clarify that in a minute, is a state amateur champion. But Mark knows probably more about caddying than anybody I've ever talked to. Let's welcome in Mark Ernst. Hello there, Mark. How you doing?
He's with us.
George, Phil, how you doing, guys? And Matt.
We're great.
Sorry.
Good to have you.
Good. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you inviting me. Yeah,
hey, Mark.
This is the part of the program where we let George play through, and we step back and listen. So, George, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, Phil just teed it up. I'm going to take it away. Mark, really a privilege to have you on. He asked me a question. I want to go ahead and defer. Hear what you've got to say about it when all the weather going on. You've got a lot of lives. As a player, you're a great player. Played in plenty of rainstorms and plenty of tough weather conditions. But talk a little bit about what the caddy and what the players are going to be doing in tough weather. Give us some insight, Coach Ernst.
Well, the main thing, obviously, the carry, the ball carries not as far when it's raining, and then it hits and stops, so that it effectively makes the fairways wider. So especially a place like TPC Sawgrass, I think you got to look at the long hitters. Going to have a huge advantage the rest of the week. Obviously, they still have to make putts, but and then I think it's just, if they're playing in a rain, fortunately, the places that I've caddied, it's been really nice. It doesn't rain in the desert. So I caddied 1 year in Palm Springs. So that was, you don't carry an umbrella out there. And then the other experiences I've had, I think I've only been on the bag one time when we had, showers, and it was light showers, but you literally need, and I heard them talking about it today on the telecast, you need 4 arms if you're caddying when it's raining, when the weather's terrible. The caddy needs 4 arms. So, it's a different dynamic. Most of it's getting the iron numbers right. I know I watched on the telecast today. They were talking about, the spin. So they're going to hit a lot of shots this week where they're not going to hit full shots because the greens are so soft. They'll just spin them right back on the shelves where they have the pins, so they'll spin it off. And obviously, Pete Dye golf courses, the ball feeds away from the whole location.
Hey, there's a lot going on for the caddy, and that's where I've lost several jobs caddying for children and friends. I have gotten fired more times in rain. It's complicated. And the one thing that finally, the last time I got fired recently, Dad, you got to take it for the team. It's all about me. I don't care if you get wet.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Or cold. You got to keep me dry and the clubs dry. So I've been fired probably more.
Yeah, as you said, my son caddies for Austin. So Drew caddies for Austin, and he hands her the umbrella. And, if he gets wet, he gets wet. But he's not carrying 2 umbrellas. So, obviously you're trying to keep the players. So, it's basically a strategy, so with them, if it's full rain gear, if they both got full rain gear on, they keep the ball covered. So they don't worry. He doesn't walk back with her, for a pre-shot routine. She'll go through a pre-shot routine and he's covering the ball. And then, if it's just a light, not much going on, but, a lot of it too, so you got to factor in temperatures. I'm not sure what the temperatures are down there, but we know for a fact that when the temperature gets below 60 degrees, it cuts the carry with an iron about 6 to 7 yards. So, there's a lot going on. They're processing a lot of information. I think that's the other reason that it really slows down. Not only the caddies trying to keep everything dry, but they're going through and, a 140 shot becomes a 134 shot, and then they don't want to spin it, so it's not a full 134 shot. So they're taking something off of instead of hitting a gap wedge, the guys hitting gap wedge, they're hitting a little pitching wedge. So they're processing a lot, for the conditions. So again, like they did in Bay Hill last week, because the greens were so firm. So.
Hey, speaking of processing, I'll bring us up to speed. Since you were last on the show, you've got a announcement. You've got something to tell the South Carolina about. Go ahead and mention what you're doing now, Mark.
Yeah, so I've started an academy at Smithfield's Country Club in Easley, South Carolina. So we have our junior academy on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and Kobe Gambrell and the owners, Kip Merck and Scott Reeves, have been kind enough to allow juniors who are not members and other members and other people who are not members to join in our programming. And as I know you're very heavily involved with, is Growing Golf Now. So they're contributing to getting golf started. And I'm excited about being able to be in player development full time. So, and then obviously have to mention I'm sorry I wasn't listening to the show earlier. I was eating. So, but Clemson men's team and South Carolina's men's golf team both won college events last week, and then the Clemson ladies are in Arizona this week. Last time I checked, they were in second place after the first round today. So a lot of good stuff with state college golf going on.
That is absolutely. Now, Phil, did he not hit it right squarely in the center for us, or what?
Right down the middle, about 270.
Hey, perfect. And one thing we like to talk about all of the players. When you say player development, I'm at Lenrick this afternoon. It's pouring rain. Well, not really pouring, but it's raining. Nobody's on the golf course except Chancellor Chavis. He's a senior at Dreer. This young man's going to do great things because he is an all-weather player. I like to recognize the people who just go ahead and pour it in. So Chancellor Chavis he was out at the golf course. Also, speaking of player development, there's a winter tour that we have right here in the Midlands. I mentioned this last week, but it's worth mentioning this week as well. The player of the year in those in Division 6 was Brent Wilson, and on the girls' side, Brooke Burgess. So, Mark, I know you spend a lot of time with juniors, but you also spend time with some college players. Give us a little update on some of the players you spend time with in college.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity with the Clemson women's golf team to be a volunteer associate. So I do a lot of time sanding divots, but nothing. I actually, they've given me Coach Kelly Hester, the head coach. I've had the opportunity to see the girls, and they've got nine great young ladies, student athletes, and had a chance more so in the fall than I have in the spring with starting the academy. But they have 9 obviously elite players there. How they process it, we could spend the whole show literally just talking about how each player processes differently, but how the game's changed. They're very much into analyzing where the areas that they can improve, and in a very detailed format. So I think the coaching is light years ahead of where it was even 10 or 15 years ago. It's a lot of stats involved. They know where for a tournament, like they were discussing with one of the girls this past Thursday, or a week ago Thursday. They were discussing what her putting average was from inside 5 feet. From
hey, let me step in. Let me ask you a quick question. Does Austin have a stats coach on her coaching team? Her
husband and myself. Her husband does all her stats, so he logs everything. So Yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. I just
yeah,
learned last week. Last week.
His name is, I'll give him a shout out, by the way. His name is Jason.
Sure.
So
Jake?
Austin got married October the 1st, and his name is Jason Dodds. So she is now
Jason Dodds.
Austin Ernest Dodds. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Hey, I'm getting the wrap up. We need to putt on out. I
Okay.
just learned last week that Wesley added a stats coach. I don't know who he is. I didn't ask the name, but all these teams, you're right, Mark. Everything's gotten so technical and specific, and it is a privilege having you on the show, Mark. And we're gonna do it again.
I appreciate that.
Like you were perfect filling in some gap space that I have left. I have missed a few short putts lately, bringing updates across the board. So there you have it, Phil. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for being on the show, and I'll go ahead and sign off, Phil. Till next time. See him high.
Yeah, my pleasure. Appreciate joining y'all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great job. Y'all hit it right down the middle, and you got up and down with no trouble. We certainly appreciate it. A couple of other golf notes. Clemson's Jacob Bridgeman, 67 today. He wins the PGA Tour Canada Q School USA East 3 tournament in Dothan, Alabama. This is a Tim Beret release. And so he is qualified on the McKenzie Tour for this summer. He's out of Inman. And you heard Mark mention the Clemson ladies are in action this weekend. They're playing in Mesa, Arizona. Today, they shot 2 under as a team. So they are in second place, trailing TCU, which is 4 under. The Tigers are actually tied with LSU. Both of them are 2 under. And then Kentucky is even. All right. So the Clemson women sitting right there in good shape. Let's see. The best score of the day for the Clemson team was looks like they had a pair of 71s, Catherine Schuster and Callista Rice turning in 71s. That's 1 under par on that course. We shall hit a break and give you a little quick Monty Lee following his team's win today over Northeastern. Also, they've changed the game times for their next 2 games because of the weather in the upstates. And they are going to be playing Northeastern tomorrow at 1 o'clock and then Sunday at noon. 1 tomorrow, noon on Sunday. Cold temperatures and travel arrangements. That's why they're changing these times up. And we'll be back.
It's almost time for the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. I know we're excited.
Me too. I'm going for all the awesome camping gear.
Not to mention they have everything I need to get out on the river.
I'm looking forward to it. I can always find what I need for my outdoor adventures.
Don't miss the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic at the State Fairgrounds, sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance, March 25th through the 27th. Purchase your tickets now at psclassic.com.
See you at the Classic.
What does the 50th anniversary of Title IX mean? It means I'm valued, I'm empowered, I can do anything. It means I'll pave the way for every girl who plays high school sports in the future, just like every female student, coach, official, and administrator blaze the trail for me. Because every student deserves the opportunity to play. Encourage girls you know to participate in South Carolina high school sports.
This message presented by the SCHSL and the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association.
Okay, we got to give you a couple of recruiting notes as we head off into the weekend. Brought to you by Seawells. I'll just say make sure you make plans to get out to Seawells next week for the daily luncheon buffet, 11 to 2. Delicious. And for the best in the catering business, the good folks at Seawells, the first people you should think about when it comes to your catering needs. Their phone number, 803-771-7385. Just a couple little recruiting notes. Been traveling, so haven't had much of an opportunity to do much in terms of digging deep in recruiting. But a couple of things of note. Of course, Clemson going to have another weekend with spring practice. They're going to have a number of players coming in for visits over the weekend. Running back Jeremiah Cobb of Montgomery confirmed that he's taking a visit to Clemson this weekend. And linebacker Grant Godfrey of Sewanee, Georgia, says he plans to be at Clemson Saturday. His brother is a Clemson basketball recruit. Also, Clemson target offensive tackle Sam Pendleton is visiting Michigan this weekend. Dutch Fork running back Jarvis Green is visiting Miami of Ohio this weekend. 2024 defensive end Sterling Dixon of Mobile, Alabama was offered by USC today. I think he was in for a visit. 2024 running back Cortez Lane of Camden plans to visit USC on March 26th. And I think we have covered the recruiting notes, the brief little recruiting notes that I have for you for today. Real quick, Deshaun Watson, the former Clemson quarterback, the NFL star, they are not going to prosecute him with those allegations from all those women against him. So I guess he's free now to be traded and to get to another NFL team. There might be some other things coming from those women making the accusations. I guess they can pursue some lawsuits and things of that nature. But as far as the criminal side of it, that appears to be over. They are not going to be pursuing charges against him, they announced today. And here is Monty Lee, Clemson baseball coach. Tigers are now, is it a lucky or unlucky 13-0 after winning today over Northeastern by a score of 9-6. Some quick comments from Monty Lee.
Well, a great win against, one heck of a scrappy team. Northeastern was coming off of a huge weekend last weekend, and we knew we were going to have our hands full against these guys. I thought it was our best offensive day of the year, considering we were facing a starter who's very, very talented. Wasn't going to give us a whole lot, and he didn't. We had the HBP there. It was in the third inning, and I thought that Brewer and Corbett really kind of set the tone for the competitiveness of our at-bats. We talked about that as a group after Wednesday's game, that I felt like we were coming off probably our least competitive game offensively. And boy, did they respond. Just two strike hits back to back to drive in 2 runs. Then we had the big inning in the 5th where we put together a lot of really good at-bats. And, we pitched just good enough. Today, I didn't think that we pitched poorly. There was just a lot of free 90s. I thought that, the free 90 kind of bit us a little bit. We gave them a few runs. Defensively, we were pretty solid. But they made us pay. The errors that we made, the 2 that we made, they made us pay on those errors. And they took advantage of some free 90s late in the ball game and gave themselves a chance. So, but we haven't been that kind of club, quite honestly. So, I don't make too much of it. But, I told the guys after the game, we needed our offense to win us a game because our pitching and defense had certainly bailed us out quite a few times over the course of this season. We needed our offense to win us a game, and we did that. So I was very proud of our guys for being able to do that.
All right, Monty Lee from earlier today. Tennessee has beaten Mississippi State 72-59. Duke and Miami at the half tied at 36. And that's where we stand there in those two conferences. Wisconsin, Michigan State, they're tied at 32 in the second half. Kansas leading TCU 44-30. Smitty, thank you for jumping in the last 2 nights. Any final deep thoughts from you as we head off into the weekend? Pat, did Smitty fall asleep on us?
We might have put Smitty to sleep over here. That's some deep insight in the show. Well, hey, while I've got you, I'll tell you the.
Give me your deep thoughts.
Well, I'm seeing right now that South Carolina men's tennis team has upset number 1 ranked Tennessee. Not going to pretend to know a whole lot about college tennis, but I do know it's quite the upset when number 1 goes down. So congratulations to the Gamecocks on defeating the top-ranked men's tennis team in the country, Tennessee.
How about that?
And obviously the selection show, I'm really fascinated to see. I
was going to say the South Carolina men's tennis team is having a great year. Smitty, was that you popping in there for a second? Well, we're just going to bid Smitty adieu. We're having, obviously, a problem there with the connection here at the end. But we thank him for joining us tonight. Thank you, Pat, for holding everything together. And we had to put some things together here in the last minutes before showtime, so it turned out just great. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll reconvene on Monday and see where we stand. Have a great weekend.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. As Russia intensifies its assault on Ukraine, it's getting a helping hand from China in spreading inflammatory and unsubstantiated claims that the U.S. is financing biological weapons labs in Ukraine. CIA Director Bill Burns said Russia's bioweapons accusations against the U.S. may be an attempt to lay the groundwork for its own actions.
Whether it's the potential for a use of chemical weapons, either as a false flag operation or against Ukrainians, this is something, as all of you know very well, is very much a part of Russia's playbook. They've used those weapons against their own citizens. They've at least encouraged the use in Syria and elsewhere. So it's